Good morning, everyone. I'll call the meeting to order. The agenda. Michelle, is there any additions or deletions? Not seeing any. Vote. That's carried. Minutes from last meeting. Ernest, you're going to move the minutes. Any questions or comments on it? Not seeing any. Vote. It's carried. Okay, I need somebody to move to go in camera. Elf is moving to go in camera. Vote. Carried. Carried. 5.1 delegation request, Tara Lynn. Yep. Are we live, Les?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Before you is a request from from Linda Kraft, Holly Stadnick, and Craig Vossler. They came to council once before to talk about that indoor riding arena just proposed east of the current urban hockey rink and multi-use facility. So it's a delegation request to come in and speak to you again, because I believe when they came before, it was very preliminary and just kind of explaining what their thoughts were. And now they would like to come and present greater detail, and they have some requests of council as well.
Okay. Darcy, making motion for delegation. Any comments? Vote. Carried. 6.1, Tara Lynn.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Bylaw 2021-12 Land Use Amendment, first reading. There is background information and drawings on page 13. And so the recommended motion is that council move first reading of bylaw 2021-12.
Destin, moving first. Okay, I know this was asked before, but I've looked it over with Leslie Ann, and if you have any questions now, you can ask it at first reading. And the reason why we're trying to get to this now is it speeds it up. If you have questions that staff have to find the answer for or anything before second reading, it gives staff a better chance. And also gives whoever has this request in, if they're watching us right now, they can start researching what your questions are. So if you have any questions on first reading, you can ask them at this point. Does anybody have any questions? Not seeing any. Motion is for first reading. Vote. Carried. 6.2, Tara Lynn.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Bylaw 2021-13 Land Use Amendment, first reading. There is background information, a map on page 18, and the recommended motion is council's consideration to move first reading of bylaw 2021-13.
Somebody want to make a motion for first? Shade? Any questions on it? Not seeing any. Vote. Carried. 6.3, Tara Lynn.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Before you is bylaw 2020, sorry, what is the bylaw number? Sorry. Bylaw 2021-15. It is the private dust control special tax bylaw. And this is something that occurs every year. It coincides with the mill rate bylaw. And so the recommended motion, Mr. Chairman, is to approve first, second, and third reading.
Okay, thank you. Michelle's moving first. Any questions? Vote. Somebody move second. Richard's moving second. Yep.
So we had talked that this was going to go up every year for a number of years. Did that happen in this bylaw change?
Oh yeah, sorry. I turned the wrong way, sorry.
Reserve 5 years up. That was a 5-year deal, wasn't it?
Yeah, it went up $5 from last year. So it's scheduled to keep on going that for I think 2 more years before we bring it back for review.
The whole $5.
That was what count. That was the direction we received 5 years ago.
Hmm.
And that's something that'll need to be reviewed for cost recovery purposes. Yeah. It was part of the Public Works Operation Plan. It was discussed briefly.
Ernest?
So this is not even close to what this is a cost recovery.
Oh God, no.
No, like that's to
to put in a dust patch, 200 meters is roughly about $23,000.
Yeah, and we have been way lower than anybody else for a long time.
There's not too many counties that are left doing oil dust patches. They've all switched to different products to have a closer cost recovery model.
So this would be something that we could maybe look at using MG30.
And that's one of the reasons why we've expanded the pilot project to show, to try to see how it holds up in heavy haul roads. And I think it might be an avenue that we would explore for the future and bring back to council.
Okay, thank you.
Robin?
Yeah, I guess that was gonna be my question as well, as with the MG30 and with regards to graveling and gravel roads and stuff, would MG30 not stand up better than an oiled dust patch for high traffic anyways, or for heavy haul?
Yes, for heavy haul, it does stand up considerably better, but it doesn't have the full dust abatement as oil does. So there is that trade-off. So you're looking at an oiled road, you're looking at about 95% dust abatement. And then with MG30, depends upon when it was installed, and because it does get a little bit slick on top. So then you add some material after a couple of years. And so then you're looking at that 70%, and Terry would have a better approximation because she's been immersed with MG30 for over a decade. So
Yes, sorry.
No, it's okay. I was just gonna say with the paving being, or the oiling being about 20,000, what would MG30 be?
3,000. 3,000? That's what putting it.
yeah, it's about 3,000.
It's
I'll
about
just
3,000. It's about 3,000 putting her down.
Yeah, so we're at 30 cents a liter, and we put on 8 liters per square meter, and it's 8 meters wide. So I think, so I'll get an exact number for you in a second.
With putting it down and all that, it's about $3,000. Like,
Yeah, so like on $3,000, we wouldn't even have to adjust it a whole lot more. If it's got a 7-year lifespan on it, it would almost be cost recovery if we could bring something like that in as an option.
I think one of the things that
3840.
3840, yeah. So and that's just for the material, correct, Steve? Yeah.
And then
And so you're looking right up because it's a lot faster than oil to put in. So then you're looking at right around that 5,500 to about 6,500, depends upon how much gravel we had to bring in. But yeah. And one of the things that we're looking at is we started gathering data from all the other counties. So a lot of the other counties have switched products, but their rates are very similar to what our rates are, but they've switched products. But we will bring that back part of this review on applications. And one of the things that we're first looking at is we have a lot of paid dust control in Cypress County. And so as those areas become up for renewal, then that might be an option to look into a different product.
Shane?
So Kim, with our new reclaimer and that, we can incorporate the existing oil into the road and then just add a bit of gravel and MG30 on top, or can you just put MG30 on top without adding gravel?
Very good question. No, and I think so part of this test was we brought down a couple of machines, and I'll just go a little bit into this because it's kind of interesting on how we're going to move forward. Now, both machines, the CAT machine or the working machine, they both have a dual pump system, so you can inject your MG30 right into when you're mixing your going over an old oiled surface. So then you would mix it all in one, and then it makes it really, really hard. And so that's something that we've never done before. And according to Lauren, nobody's done it in Alberta. That's just something that we're trying it out. I think by looking on the road just north of Shane's place there, or Councillor Hawk's place, sorry, is it's pretty solid, and I think it's going to hold up really well there. And if any road holds up, that's a really sandy road, like the soil is extremely sandy. And if that holds up, then I think we're the next spot is we're going to, upon later on in the council agenda, is the program is moving down to the Range Road 65. And so that's a little bit different of a soil composition. But that's one of the things that MG30 is ideal for sandy soil. And there's different other enzymes and stuff that are different in more clay-based soil. But yeah, I think it's going to hold up really well with incorporating it all in one pass. And that'll save a lot of time and money.
And it's crazy how pH of the soil too plays a lot in it too. Like it's a science. Yeah, it's science.
Well, it'd be good if we can bring it down to something reasonable versus at $20,000 a patch. Any other questions or comments on it? Ernest?
So which pH does it not work good at, high pH or low pH?
My understanding is acidic.
It doesn't work well in acidic?
Yeah, it's less like the enzyme in it, like magnesium and the calcium.
Yeah. So then.
I just love how it for the dollar that you spend, it saves your gravel. The bonus is dust abatement. Not as good as oil, but it certainly it does the trick.
Yeah, so then it may be an issue in my area because our acids run in 6.7s.
Yeah, I'm glad you brought that up. We're having a company come down to do some soil testing down in various areas throughout Cypress County. And there's different enzymes that work better in a more acidic soil. That's correct.
Okay. Any other questions? Let's see. Who moved second? Dustin? Oh, Richard did? Okay. Not seeing any other questions? Vote. Carried. Move to have third. Dustin? Vote. Carried. Shane's moving third. Vote. Carried. 7.1, Terlin.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Bylaw 2021-14, tax rate bylaw. So before you, Mr. Chairman and Council, is the bylaw with the background information. Just a little bit of the background section. 353 of the MGA requires the council to pass a property tax bylaw annually, allowing the municipality to raise revenue to cover expenditures, transfers, and requisitions as set out in the budget. The property tax bylaw must separately identify all assessment classes, tax rates, and requisitions. So as directed below, reflects the adoption of the 20th percentile methodology to ensure the greatest equity among each property class. The first year of the 5-year plan is to read as the following: 6% for farmland, 12.8, increase to non-res, 0 for residential, and 0 change for small biz. Mr. Chairman, it is administration's request that council considers the moving of first, second, and third reading of bylaw 2021-14 property tax.
Okay, thank you, Terlin. Get somebody to move the first reading. Ernest? Oh, sorry, Robin. Any questions or comments? Not seeing any. Vote. Carried. Second reading. Ernest? Any questions or comments? Vote. Carried. Move to have third. Elf's moving to have third. Vote. Carried. And moving third, Dustin. Vote. Carried. 7.2, Terlin.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Before you is the accounts payable listing for council's information.
Any questions or comments? Robin's moving for information. Shane?
I got a whole list. I went over this with a fine tooth comb. Okay, just hang on, I'll get the page here. Under the S's. For Seahawk.
Seahawk.
Seahawk. Felt lined boots, $1,402.80. What is that? Fire boots? Fire rubber boots. Okay. Right under the V's.
Under the what?
V, Viking. Whoops. Viking Sieves Limited, mushroom shoe, $433.44. What's a mushroom shoe? Are we growing mushrooms or what?
They're the wear shoes for the bottom of like a reclaimer or anything that'll drag on the ground. I'm not sure what we have, but the mushroom shoe is a wear shoe. There we go.
Of what? Oh, on your Sanders. Okay.
Yep.
Then just another question. Under, like with the engineering firms, and that, I noticed like to give, separate bills for bridge files and pavement rehabilitation strategies and range roads, 120. Some of that they're bid on. Are we making sure that they're not overbilling?
And
That
that's,
we're keeping track of when they hand in their invoices that they're staying within?
yeah, through the chair. That's the reason why we request them to be broken down in very detailed, because we code them to each project. And then when we do that, we actually break down the projects from engineering to construction to materials. And so, and then part of that is some of it's grant funded and some of it's not, depending on what they're working for. So that's why we go into that detail.
Perfect. That's what I wanted to know. Thank you. That's end of my list.
Any other questions? Robin moved them. Vote. Carried. 7.3, Carolyn.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Signing authority, recommended motion that council authorizes agreements and checks and other negotiable instruments must be signed or authorized by the Reeve, Deputy Reeve, Chief Administrative Officer, and an addition change would be to Acting Director of Corporate Services, Mr. Taves.
Alf is moving that. Any questions?
Are we a dual signatory or is it a single signature that's required?
It's dual.
Okay, cool. That's all.
Has to be either the Reeve or the Deputy Reeve and one of those two. Can't be those two. Okay. Yeah. Any other questions? Vote. Carried. 8. CAO's report.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Before you is the CAO report. Is there any questions?
Anybody have any questions?
I was going to put this in my council report, but I've had a couple of phone calls and conversations with people who run heavy equipment on Eagle Butte with regards to the lights. What they're communicating to me is that the three-way stop, by the time that they stop at the three-way, even if they're stopped at the three-way when it turns green, by the time that
Not enough time.
yeah, by the time that they gear up, they're going through a yellow light. The question that I have is that on a timer or is it on a sensor? Is there a possibility that we could potentially request for an extension? I know at the Callahan Inn location, I've seen 10 vehicles parked at that stop sign, and a lot of times most of them get through. It's just maybe a little bit on the rush side, and I fear that if we don't do something about it, we're actually encouraging people to run that three-way in order to get through. So that's all.
That's good. Good comment.
Through the chair. So that's something that we've received not only us, I should say, AT's also received quite a few phone calls. And so I had an email quite recently from the engineer, and they're reviewing the traffic.
Flow.
There's the traffic flow through time, because you can set that through time. And so they're doing an analysis right now of what's the best to set that, because it might, and then time of year. So it's set with school, and because you have the same issues with school buses. And so now school buses are not going that route. They're trying to find a different route. So it's something that we're addressing through, we went through AT. We thought AT would have to do it, but the AT says we still have dual control of that intersection. So that's.
So you
So
can
we're-
set
we're
that
looking
for longer at certain times during the day?
That's correct.
Oh. That'd be- Go ahead, Shane.
Yeah, you can set them however you want. What Robin is getting at, let's not keep waiting for a study. Tell the engineering firm it has to be done. They can come and have a look and tweak it and up it and up the time limit. Because it's easily done, because at night you can turn it way down for your time.
And through the chair, it was improper for me to say the word study, because study, we put that into correlation of long periods of time. This is going to happen in very short order.
Yeah, and further to what Shane was saying as well is that the people that are commenting to me aren't school bus drivers. They're things like septic tank, cleaning services, concrete trucks, shipping, companies, things like that aren't necessarily specific to 8 a.m. and 3 p.m. or anything like that. It would be during operating hours or anything like that.
And even light duties are coming down here. They're getting
Oh.
to the three-way, so they get to the three-way, and then they don't want to sit there, and so what they're doing is heading down here and getting on that way.
And one of the traffic flows that we didn't anticipate, but we should have, is the amount of traffic that comes down the 120 that wants to go up to 41. They will come down the Eagle Butte Road. So then they have turning, then they can, when they turn on to the Trans-Canada, then they have the ability to go down the 41 instead of trying to cut across 2 lanes of highway to get through the 41. So that has an increased flow with the traffic there.
I noticed it this morning. I had stopped down there and came through, and I was only the second one behind the stop sign. The light turned green, and by the time I got to the three-way stop, it was already red. They just no
Well,
time
and
at all.
also too, you're yielding to people coming off the one.
Yeah.
And so that ties you up too, right? So it needs to be extended a bit.
Yeah.
Yep.
Shane?
Yes, for the emergency protective services. How are we going with Cypress Hills Park? Is that moving forward? Are we gonna have something in place by camping season? Or are we gonna have to wait another year?
Actually, we're having great conversation and movement, and Jeffrey, Kim, and myself are pushing to have agreements signed. The lease for the fire hall, I think, is signed. We're just waiting back for the fire services. It's at their legal right now, and Jeffrey is pushing that quite hard. Tomorrow again, so we're having meetings with Environment and Parks every 2 weeks. And we've enlisted the help of our EMA regional person, Gary. He is helping us as well to get something in place. And the acting director. So we're
We're a lot closer now than we were.
and we're even,
2
it's
months
like,
ago.
we're pushing it every 2 weeks. We're having a meeting. So
Continue.
Yeah.
But do you think we'll have something in place by the May long weekend before camping season starts up there?
yes. An interim memorandum of agreement. Yep. Mm-hmm. Yep.
Ernest?
You don't have to worry about the May long weekend. It usually snows a foot there on the May long weekend.
Hopefully this year again.
Anybody else? Somebody want to move the CAO report? Robin? Vote? Carried? Reeve and counselors, mine is there. Michelle, do you want to? Start.
Sure. Uh, Since last meeting, I had a short grass meeting, which we just pretty much covered the budget. We had an egg service meeting where we discussed about the rental fees for the new roller. Yesterday, I sat in with Kayleen and for the planning convention. That was pretty cool. It was all about rural tourism in rural Alberta. And then today, that's about it.
Robin?
Not too many meetings county-wise the last couple of weeks, been busy with work and stuff like that. I did have a phone call from Al Camry here a couple of weeks ago with regards to FCM. As council knows, I've been sitting with the committees for the last 2 years, and this coming year, Annalise Jensen, who was the director on the board for the rural seat, is not running again. So I've been encouraged to put my name forward for that. Now, what was nice to learn as I spoke with Al and with Gerald Rhodes with that is that RMA actually funds because there's only one rural board seat with FCM, and it's fully funded through the RMA. So I guess following the reports, if I could get a motion, I need a motion of endorsement from council, but because it would be through RMA, all of the per diems and finances and costs are completely covered by the RMA. So I won't be pursuing the committee's side this year. So this would save council that expense and still give me the opportunity to work with the board.
Alf?
Yeah, I had a meeting with Carolyn and Leslie Ann for the cat task force meeting. And I'll talk about it a little later on. And also we had a landfill meeting, which is on our agenda package here right now. So, okay.
Richard?
We canceled the Verge meeting just because of the lockdown, and we'll probably do a Zoom next month. And we're thinking we might just go every other month now until we can actually meet in person. And the only other thing I did was I had the Reeve come out to my area, and we drove down the road, which is Range Road 122, and then taking a right on Township Road 122. And I think we go down about 5 miles, and then we take a turn to the right on Range Road 71. And that is the road that Big Marble has chosen to use to haul their waste material on. And because it is such a large site now, the amount of production that Big Marble does, it's constant traffic. And it is causing the residents along that road a lot of grief. There is no end to the dust. And when they get onto 71, they've beat the oil up so bad that I know Public Works is going to go in there and try and figure out a plan to fix it. So when we got back, I was thinking about what some answers would be. And so I sent an email in and to Dan and Carolyn, and I don't know if I can call it a request, but my suggestion was that we lower the speed limit on 122 and 71. And one of the reasons I brought that up was when I was helping my cousin farm in Saskatchewan, north of Moose Jaw, they had some restrictions on their roads that applied to gravel and oil. So anything over 2 axles, they lowered the speed limit considerably. And I'm thinking because this is such a safety issue, we have school buses going down that road, we have lots of traffic because there's a fair amount of people on that road, let's lower the speed limit. And I was in a nasty mood, and I said, let's go to 40 kilometers an hour, and you can haul all you want down there if you want it 40 kilometers an hour. And I would really like council to consider this. I'm not asking the other roads to be done. I just want this one because this is what they have continuously decided to use, even though they've been asked very nicely to take it to a transfer site. That's not going to change. And there's another 10,000 square feet that they're going to add on soon and add to that pile. So it's not fair to those people out there that they have to deal with a commercial operation, okay? I don't think that's unreasonable. Yes, it's going to affect the farmers a bit, but the farmers that are living along that road are going to appreciate it just as much. It is a constant dust storm. So I'm sure down the road, we'll have some more discussions on it, but that was my contribution.
I didn't realize that it was to bring an agenda item to the councilor's report. You should have put it on.
Dustin?
Just a question on that. On 71, I'm just trying to remember off the top of my head, it's oiled from the 122 to the coulee, correct? Or somewhere in that general area, like right by, in front of those other greenhouses there, that's where the oil is?
Just a short section in front of the greenhouse and in front of the houses. I think there's 13 houses right in that area, but Kim can probably tell us more. And to Councillor, I just wanted to bring the report up that this is a problem that I've had to deal with this week, okay?
Strikes me more as an agenda item.
That's
all.
okay.
Yeah, through the chair.
Kim?
I think there's approximately about 700 meters worth of dust patches, and some of them are shared. And where we're getting the damage, because we've been there the last 3 years, we've been there every year at a bill of approximately about 40 grand a pop. This last bill was about close over to 100,000. And when they turn, that's where it's ripping out the oil and making big ruts. So it's the heavy traffic that's turning into their compost pile. And it stops about I think about 200 meters shy of the coulee going down.
Ernest?
Wasn't their last development permit, or several of them, that they were supposed to take all that stuff to the landfill as a condition? So wouldn't we enforce that rather than spend more money on the road? Not that I'm saying they shouldn't fix the road, but should we not enforce our?
Well, I believe the condition, and somebody will have to clarify this, but I believe the condition was to an approved waste authority, and that's where the toss up is what's approved, because they're defining it as an agriculture, and we're defining it as a commercial operation. So
under the purview of Alberta Environmental Protection Act, this would be in their lane. We can't enforce another act that we don't have jurisdiction for. So when there's concerns, it would be appropriate for folks, and I know they have to contact Alberta Environment, and I know Alberta Environment is very aware, our local person is very aware of the situation. But we can't enforce another legislation that doesn't fall under our purview.
So then if we put on a condition that you have to take your stuff to the landfill and you don't do it, anybody can just put it wherever they want?
The enforcement of that, the enforcement of that act is under Alberta. It's their act. So our condition is that they have to follow it, but it's Alberta Environment's responsibility because it's their lane. Does that make sense?
So if they're not following it, can we put a stop on the development of that was part of the development permit, correct?
So what we could do is request Alberta Environment to take more active role.
Okay. Darcy?
Did they not have to, I thought they had to do a road use agreement or something too.
they do, but that was only for the 1 mile adjacent to their property set by council.
How far is this stretch?
I believe it's 5 miles, and then it's about 3/4 of a mile going north. That's approximate. So it's just under 6 miles.
It's made a big mess of the roads out there. I was shocked when Richard took me out and seen what it's not fair to the people around there to put up with that. Richard?
So the thing is that for an agricultural setting, people understand that when they're out there seeding, the farmers are seeding, we're gonna have dust, okay? those trucks are going by. When the harvesting is, it's going to happen. When the baling is, it's going to happen. But this is just about a daily situation. So anybody living along that road, there's no end to the dust. There's no end to the dust for the school buses that are going up and down, and or for the other people that are traveling back and forth. So that's why I said, if Alberta Environment can't do anything and we can't impose any laws on it, we control the speed limits. And that's a fast, easy fix. That's done with the dust.
Dustin?
Is there a way we can make them go around? Well, if they have to go out and down the highway and around on the Wholesome Road and then south down the 71, there's nothing really on that end of the 71. And that eliminates lots of the problem. Well, if you ban that strip of asphalt, I'm sure we can do anything we want.
Yeah, then everybody's. Okay, I think this is something, it was just brought up because he's having issues with it, and it'll be something that'll probably come back on the agenda in the future. But it was just in his report on what we did in the last 2 weeks, so it wasn't meant to be an agenda item. So, Darcy? Nothing? Shane?
Oh boy, that was quite interesting. Had Ag Service Board meeting where we'll be bringing back some policy changes to the master rate bylaw. Had the regional landfill meeting, as you can see from the report here, and I hope this is just a start. That every meeting will be given a report, and hopefully the Cypress View will be showing the same type of stuff soon. As you can see, we acquired free of charge from the town of Red Cliff, a tandem axle trailer, a John Deere grader, a case backhoe, tandem dump truck, and 1-ton crane truck. Just a note, the crane is not active, so we don't have to train somebody on the use of a crane. The John Deere grader will be handy to clear the snow, grade the road, and we got it all free of charge. And as it says, we got the mixer coming. Ag Plus was the successful bidder. They were a wee bit higher than another outfit, but they got better local. And that's about it. I hope you guys all read it. The waste is up and we're making money there. And our landfill manager has given his resignation, so I don't know. I was sort of thinking in the meantime, maybe our Reed would take that position.
See what?
That's the end of my report.
Dustin?
One thing I had was ASB meeting, and then Shane had alluded to the master rates bylaw, which we'll see when it comes forward, and we brought forward to start charging mileage for delivery on all our rental equipment. But essentially the drills and the rollers and whatnot, because it just covers off some of staff's time and money that way. I think that was about it. Just a question on Red Cliff landfill, Shane. What did they get for their compost? Is it like a 1500 Supreme or something, like a big stationary mixer or a portable, or what was there? I was just curious.
Yeah, no, it's a stationary mixer. Yeah, it's a Supreme. Yeah.
Ernest?
I attended the land planning conference, whatever it was yesterday.
Are you telling the truth? Because there's.
Yeah, no, it was the conference of the planning.
I'm just giving you a hard time.
Oh, I didn't hear that.
Just a little curious there, that's all.
Well, it was a warning.
Michelle?
I'll move the counselor's reports, but I also have a question. I really liked what Alf and Shane did with the waste management, because you could see everything. And I'm just curious if anybody else would want to, I like the idea of us submitting our reports to there, because then everybody knows what's going on with everybody and nobody has to sit here and talk. So I'm just curious if anybody else is on the same page.
Well, I was hoping it would take off. That's why I started doing my report on there. So, Richard?
I forgot one thing. I did have a question. When I was reading over the planning commission minutes, it's really easy to understand what's going on. When you read the development applications, it says for viewing. They're very informative. But then when I get to the next part of it, it says for consideration. It doesn't tell us anything. You and the planning commission know what it is, but we know nothing, right? So could
it's
we
in our
have some more information on that? Just, like I'll use George Russell's place as an example. It just says that here's your conditions, but we don't even know what he's doing there and to meet then he has to meet those conditions. So there's nothing there that tells us. If we can have one line that just tells us. It's in those minutes there, it just says for consideration, but it doesn't tell us anything.
You'd have to look at the agenda, Richard. So you're looking at the minutes, you'd have to go back and look at the agenda that's sent or online, and then it'll show you what we discussed. You're just getting the minutes on it. Jeffrey?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Yeah, if you read the minutes, it does say so when it says for consideration, that means it's for consideration of the Municipal Planning Commission for their approval, meaning that the development officer doesn't have or the planning supervisor doesn't have the authority to approve, those discretionary use development applications or subdivision approvals. But it does say in the minutes that who the applicant was, what the approval was that the planning commission actually granted approval for, and then it states what the approval conditions are. So it does say right in the minutes itself what the application was for, what the approval was given, and what the attached conditions of approval were for that particular application, whether it's development or subdivision.
The short part of it.
Yeah, it doesn't. Yeah, that's right. So for example, if it's a setback relaxation for an accessory building from the side property line, it basically states that in the approval, but it doesn't go into the details of all the details that the planning commission would have considered. But it does briefly state what the approval was for, and and if there were any attached conditions as part of that approval.
No, I understand what Richard's after, because I'm at the same way. When I read that, I'm going, okay, George. So then you'd have to try to backtrack all the way to see what you guys are talking about. All we're asking is a simple.
Okay, hold on. Darcy will help you here.
It's the same as these minutes.
That's exactly what I was going to say.
Here's what you're reading now, say on this. That's not all in the minutes. The planning's the same way. So we have all the background information, but that's not in the minutes. Planning commission is the same way.
Yeah.
So here's 4.2. You have all the information in front of you. In the minutes is the short version. Planning commission is the same way. George's application would be with all the background and everything in the agenda package. The short version's in the minutes. This is the same thing.
Yeah. It's identical thing. What you guys are asking for, you have to actually go to the agenda online and go through and read, and then you can compare it to the minutes that we sent out to see that. Yeah. Shane, you're always looking for a shortcut. We're good. Is that clear for you? You understand?
No, yeah, and I understand. It's just that I don't go on and I don't dig up the agenda package for the planning commission. Okay, so then I should go do that now. But when I glanced through the minutes, I just wanted to see what George is an example. What's he doing there? But it doesn't say in there that he's.
It doesn't. You got to go into the agenda. That's no different than this right here that we're doing today. You've got 200 pages, 235 pages. But the minutes from the last one was only a page and a half long, right?
I was just trying to keep my time down on it. so
You were trying to
thanks.
take the shortcut.
I'm good with it. All right. Yeah, I'm good with it.
Mr. Chairman, I was just going to suggest that, certainly from planning and development's perspective, we could certainly circulate the MPC agenda to all of council at the same time that we circulate it to our MPC members. Certainly it is, fairly lengthy. So as long as council is, interested in reading it, we'll certainly circulate it.
Would that help you guys out? It's not a shortcut to reading it though.
That's a question. When you're doing the minutes, if a guy just wrote in there 3,200 square foot house. That's it. Just, or 1,800 square foot garage shop.
And Mr. Chairman, if I could, the minutes have to reflect exactly what it is that the applicant has applied for. So what is basically on the title of the development permit that the applicant receives after it's approved is exactly the description of what goes into the minutes. So that information is actually in the minutes right now. To that level of detail anyway.
Yeah, kind of. What I was going to kind of allude to is we're kind of talking about a bit of a slippery slope if we want to be including like the entire minute package and agenda from previous meetings and everything else like that. Like with Egg Service Board, if I'm looking through the minutes and there's something that I have a question about, I'm going to go to the agenda and learn more about it. If we try to put this into here, we're going to end up with a bloated agenda for our council meetings. And the reality is that we have trusted, counselors that are appointed to those boards where honestly, unless I have a reason to worry about something within it, I'm trusting the ASB service to be managed through our people. And if we have questions, I can ask them about it versus doing an audit on committees within council. I don't think that that's where you're going with, Richard. I'm just saying that to be able to go to the actual agenda pack to find background information would be fine.
Richard?
I never wanted this to go out of to this any kind of level. I just sometimes somebody says to you, "Oh, what's going on at so-and-so's place?" And I can't get that information unless I guess I got to spend more time on it. But we never did get the agenda package. Okay, I just wanted 3 or 4 words on there that said "new house." But I'm good. We'll just move on.
Jeffrey?
My last comment will be, and certainly even from the, I'll even extend the offer for Ag Service Board agenda packages as well. We can certainly circulate those to all of council when it's circulated to the Ag Service Board members prior to the meeting. So it's not that big of a deal to add, to circulate it to all of council when we send it out prior to the meeting.
And Mr. Chairman, I'm sure there's something that we could add that'd be an easy fix. That would be helpful.
So if you circulated the agenda, the MPC to the counselors, would that affect the counselors that sit on the SDBA because they have different knowledge or what?
It's public.
It's
Would
public.
have no effect.
No.
Okay, that was just a thought.
Shane? Oh,
Okay, just under what Richard here, the George Russell. George Russell was present electronically, I'm reading the minutes. Darcy Gladly moved to approve development application permit 2116. That's it, subject to the submitted application with the following conditions. All Richard is asking, and I was the same way, application permit 2116, we can't have a little brief description what it is, like a house, shop, what it is.
Yeah.
A deck. I mean, that's all we're asking, because right now it all says is permit 2116. So then you have to go and go through everything.
So I know there's an easy fix. So Jeffrey, Kayleen, and myself will get something figured out. I'm sure there's something easy peasy that will give more detail and not be a big deal.
Robin?
If you look at the minutes from last week, it says soil stabilization, and then it says who moved it and stuff. That's all you want.
Yeah.
Right. Look at our minutes, and there's like 4 black letters what it was about from our council meetings.
Yeah, but I know, but we're all here. It's just, if somebody asks us something about the municipal planning, just, all we're asking, I mean, sure, I can go and do the research and back all the way through to find that permit.
Staff,
Just it'd be something simple.
staff will bring something back. That's the easiest thing.
Yeah. Yeah.
Robin?
Yeah, I don't want to drag this out anymore, but this last statement, if somebody calls me up and says, hey, what's going on with the landfill? I'm not even going to attempt to try to answer questions for it. I'm going to direct them to Shane or to Elf. That is the way that from, as a council that has representatives, let's keep this simple. We have people that are on the committees. Let's not try to learn everything about every different board that we're on so we can answer questions that we aren't involved with.
We'll put Dustin.
I'm going to go somewhere else now. So back to Michelle's comment about doing written reports. I think we should do that. Might have to give some people here Mavis Beacon so they can learn how to type again, but I think that might not be a terrible thing. It'll be a big time saver in the meeting, as I've just noticed.
That's where I was trying to head with that. So.
Yeah, so Mr. Chairman, so the process, what we'll do is send out an email about how, because how we do it is that you would do something and you don't, it just has to be bullet form, and then Leslie Ann will include that in the document. So we want it easy peasy and for everybody. And so what we'll do is forward an email out and talk with like the steps about submitting, and yeah, all good.
So that, we didn't discuss this, but should those reports be to Leslie Ann by the Tuesday, not by the Wednesday, so that she has a chance? Because it's added more work to the agenda.
That would be awesome. By noon Tuesday at the latest.
And then if you have anything to add on the agenda, you still have till noon on Wednesday for any other topic. Just to help Leslie Ann compile
Compile it.
everything. Is everybody good with that? It's just for your reports, Ernest.
Oh, well,
So
most
if
of my reports, I don't have to submit anything.
Well, if you go to PEP and you talk about something at PEP, then you just get it to her,
Yeah, okay.
right? Elf?
Yeah, so most of our committees have got two people on them. And so one person should only have to submit the so.
So Chairman, it'll be a work in progress and we'll make it work.
Yeah, we'll figure it out as we go. Mm-hmm. Okay, that was the reports. Michelle moved them. Vote. Carried. It's 11 o'clock. We'll take a, go ahead, Robert.
I was just going to say, just following up from the reports, if it would be okay, I would look for a motion for council endorsement to run for that RMA seat, if that is something that we can just squeeze in real quick. So all I'm looking for, we did it when I ran for the executive, it basically said the council endorsed Councillor Kirby White to run for the board. At the time, council would have been the one that was covering it. And at this point right now, I'm happy to include in that as per the compensation policy of RMA. So it puts no onus or, commitment to our council, and it allows me to put my paperwork in.
Ernest is moving it.
Including whatever, all it.
Any questions on it? Vote. Carried. We'll take a 5-minute break. Okay, call the meeting back to order. 10.1, Turlin.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. So a handout, and it was emailed yesterday, I believe. So it is the NRCB application, Hutter and Brethren of Murray Lake. The recommended motion is that council direct administration to notify the operator and the NRCB that they are required to utilize Township Road 110 to Highway 887 as a designated haul road route. And there's background information there as well, Mr. Chairman.
Dustin's going to make that motion. Any questions or comments on it? Not seeing any. Vote. Carried. 10.2, Turlin.
Police funding model expense. So for 2021, so just background information for council, and the recommended motion that council move to accept the police funding model regulation expenses for 2020 and 2021 for information. And it's in the budget, Mr. Chairman.
Richard?
I'll make that motion to accept it. And my question is, our enhanced officer, I think is about 170,000 a year. And then now we add this 320,000 to it.
So the enhanced position, Solicitor General absorbs that. So that 170 is, they pay for it because it was a previous commitment.
Okay.
And then it's this, so so we don't have to pay that additional 170 and this commitment. It's just this
Okay.
commitment.
150,000 more.
Yeah.
Okay.
Than what we normally pay.
Well, that's not so bad. Hey, only 150,000. Okay.
For a couple of years till we get up to the 750,000.
Yeah.
It's a pro.
Isn't that every year it's
grad-
gonna go?
Yeah.
Every year, yeah.
I think
Okay.
we cap out at 750, don't we?
At the current formula.
Yeah.
So we know how that goes.
We'll sleep better knowing that.
That's,
It's over 5 years they're gonna
Yeah, the
that was
implementation.
presented to us quite a while ago.
crank
There's-
on it,
Yeah.
so.
This is just the information that's for this year, and I just wanted to share it with you.
What? Oh, gee. Okay, Richard made the motion to receive for information. Any more questions on it? Vote. Carried. 10.3, Carolyn.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. The Canadian Animal Task Force for Feral Cats. The recommended motion is that council approve the municipal cat care and management project for the hamlets of Suffield, Irvin, and Walsh at the cost of $5,750 per hamlet for a total of $17,250 funded from the Mill Rate Stabilization Fund, which is operating reserve. There is background information, Mr. Chairman, and I'd just like to add myself and Councillor Bellier and Leslie Ann, we met virtually with RJ Bailett he's the executive director for that group. Learned a lot about the group, a lot of the success stories that they have in other communities. And what I really liked about it was how they teach the community, how they teach us, in how to manage feral cats. We're not the only ones in the world with the concern and the success stories that they've had. And it will, it was just interesting, like all the experience that they have. The group is ran mainly by volunteers, and it's an impressive group.
Yeah, the complaints that we've been getting in lately is, they're getting quite a few. So coming from different communities and whatnot. So I think it's something that we really got to address and it is a way of controlling them and that. So yeah, I would recommend that we accept or pass this motion. So.
1 sec. Hold on. So you're making this motion?
I'll make the motion.
Okay. Shane and then Richard.
So Dunmore and these other hamlets don't have a cat problem? Or Schuler? I was just wondering that, there's only Suffield, Irvin and Walsh.
At this time, Mr. Chairman, those are where the main concerns are coming from. But if when this works, not if it works, when this works, if council wishes to move it to other hamlets, I think that would be very advantageous for those communities.
Richard?
I did bug Alf about this yesterday, and then I looked at the total, and we're going like, holy man, 17 grand. But if you do the math, when we send out our 14 graders every day, it's cost us 20,000 a day. And so this is a well spent $17,000, okay? Well, we would if we could do it. Never mind. Sure.
Is nobody gonna quote the great Gary Lentz on this or what? Canadian Tire's got a sale on Pelicans. Yeah. Dustin?
I just question if it's a long-term solution or not. Because even if you do take and go through and spay or whatever, all these feral cats, is there not just going to be another rash of them that moves in? Because I know for me, we get thousands of cats a year that come through, and if they stick around or not, it's another thing. But I think most of our problem comes out of where people are dropping things off, and that's what happens.
Different.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. As part of the ICF process, certainly the county, the city, and the town are trying to address pound services and what that might look like. One of the things that has been identified at the ICF level and between the municipalities is the fact that feral populations, whether it's dogs or cats, there's a fairly significant expanse for the neutering and spaying of the animals. And, and that, leads to people not, undergoing that process and then hence dropping off animals in our hamlets or abandoning them, whether it's in the city, the town, or the county. And so, that's something that we're trying to look at going forward in terms of, what is the long-term solution that you raised, which is trying to come up with a solution to make it more affordable for people to be able to get their animals neutered and spayed at a more affordable cost, so that to try and keep the population numbers more in check. But you're right, there's always going to be that case of extra or numerous animals that need to be sort of, I guess, kept in check. So, but that's one of the things that's being discussed at that level. So just so council is aware.
Michelle and then Darcy.
I actually really like this idea. And as far as the replacing, like cats coming through when we fix them and then more come, they address that in here, right? They say that if they're not taking the cats out of the feral cats out of the communities, they're just fixing them and letting them live where they are. And I know around my house and the farm, cats are generally territorial. So if they're fixed and they're still living in that community, they're going to keep out the rest of the feral cats. They're going to go find someplace else to go. I mean, there's not going to deal with the problem, but I think it's a lot better than the last one that came through here.
Darcy?
Yeah, I'll go with it, giving it a whirl here, but the only question is what about, I don't really think the problem is from dropping them off. I think the problem's coming from within. So can you take your own cats there and get them fixed then, or?
Yes.
Yeah, there's an educational side of it too.
Yeah.
On.
Yeah.
Because I mean, just for example, look at the domestic rabbits in Medicine Hat, right? Like they're not coming from outside of Medicine Hat, right?
Yeah.
And I have a feeling these cats are the same way, right?
So in speaking with RJ, the executive director, so what they do is the feral cats, they notch their ears and tattoo them, so then they can have a visual on it as well. And you're right, they do go in colonies. And we do have folks that drop them off. We do know that firsthand, that people are doing that. But for a management sake, most communities try to implement a cat bylaw. That's not a management tool. That's an enforcement tool. In speaking with the executive director, the City of Medicine Hat has showed interest in this as well. Many of the residents have, because it has been so successful in other urban type communities. And Claire's Home, Fort McLeod, they have shown that it has maintained and decreased the population.
Yeah. Okay, have a motion on the floor. Any more comments on it? Vote. Carried.
One thing to it.
Well, don't get carried away now. You
No,
got it
no.
through.
If we, now that it's passed and that, no, RJ said that, like, we could possibly get going like early June. So it's gonna happen pretty quick.
Let's try.
Okay. 10.4.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. 7 persons community association most application. Recommendation is council allocate $12,219.34 to the 7 persons community association with funds coming from the most grant. There is some background and the application there as well, Mr. Chairman.
Dustin,
I'll move number 1.
does anybody have any questions or comments on it? This should be pretty well the end of the most. It was the end of the month, end of April.
Yep.
There's nothing sitting that hasn't been processed yet.
Possibly one. Possibly.
There could be one more, but I think it will be addressed with the Recreation Board funding.
Okay.
Because this association has already received most funding. So I think there's just a little bit of a miscommunication with the different grants that we had out this year.
Because there's lots going on.
Okay. Okay, so this should be the final one then. Any other questions or comments? Not seen it? Vote. That's carried. 10.5, Carolyn.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Cypress County Library Board budget. So under the library board, there's a library board established. Then there's Cypress County. There's Shortgrass in there, and then there's the individual community libraries. So with Shortgrass, they're the regional library system. So what and working with Councillor Guiley, this is the process that we're going to do. So the Shortgrass, the library board or Cypress County forwards money for materials levy and for the membership levy for the municipality. So what will happen is those funds will be forwarded to the library board, then the library board will forward those on to Shortgrass. Okay, so we're gonna streamline and make that efficient like that. Then also to the library board, the county library board, the county forwards them $40,000, and then the board applies for the provincial money, the 60.
The way it worked before was, well, the first part is we were supposed to be bringing our budget in since the library started to get council approval. That's why you're
Under the bylaw, yeah, under the bylaw, once a year it's supposed to be, but I just wanted to share kind of like
And then
the process.
the county was paying bills, the library board was paying bills, and nobody ever kind of really knew which ones were getting paid. So now there's 2 of they're roughly both about 30,000. There's 3 of them that are roughly $30,000. 2 of them went to Shortgrass. One was for materials, and the other one was for the membership levy. And that one was the county was paying all the time for us. The other, I think 34,000 is a
matching grant.
a grant that we get from the government, but it's on a per capita basis. So the county has to pay that much in order for the library board to get a $40,000 grant.
So it's a match.
Pretty much.
Well, it's based on per capita though. You have to pay a minimum amount to get that.
The max grant.
So that was 34. So that's all the library board was getting, was the 34 and the 40. And then the county were paying all the bills. Now we want all of it to go to the library board, and the library board pays its own bills, and then we know what's going on. So it's just a formality basically. Except as I read here though, we do need the whole 98 this year.
Mhm. And that's in the budget.
Okay. Because we had another, as you can see, all of our money is going out. Basically, except for $2,000 or something, I do believe.
Yeah, the board dispenses. Yeah.
Does anybody have any questions on this?
I think it's our goal that it'll streamline the process.
It'll clean it up and then we'll know what's going on. And this will come in every year now, so you can follow it a little more closely, because until a month ago, I really didn't know what was going on either.
It's all good now. And we had a wonderful meeting with Petra with
Petra, yeah.
Shortgrass. It was it was really good. Cleared up a lot of stuff, and it was very, very positive. Very, very positive.
Perfect.
Then out of this, you see that we do give some to different library boards too, right? Red Cliff, Medicine Hat.
That's something I didn't, do we not do Suffield anymore?
That's
Yep.
Graham.
That's
So
Oh,
great.
that's
basically,
great.
all we're operating is Irvin and Graham. Those are our two libraries, and the other ones, we just give them a little bit.
And then within there, so the Urban Community Library would pay their own bills as well. So that's where I got kind of jiggle jaggled who was doing what. So
Confusing.
yeah, but there's several layers to it. But
So
Petra was awesome.
Did Graham not come back last year short? We had to add money on. Is that in this year to cover it all now?
As you can see in there, the county already made, there's installment payments on the one to Shortgrass. That's like 16,000 and some. The county already made one of those payments for us because it's later in the year. But we're gonna ask for the whole 98 because Graham is short and gonna need some extra that the board hasn't decided on yet. So it's not in the budget, but
It's not in the.
when we
it's
have
not
our
in-
next meeting, it probably will be added in.
on the library board budget, but it's
So-
on Cypress County's.
Well, it's on Cypress County's budget, but
But
you
then
haven't
they-
asked for it yet. Because you don't know what it is yet. Okay.
Yeah, so that's where all the layers get confusing because we have Cypress County, and then we have Cypress County Library Board, which is a different entity.
I just remember last year they were short, I think it was 10,000 or something, weren't they? We had to make up for it. That's why I was just asking if it was in the budget or not. So it is in the Cypress County budget. Okay. Any other questions? Not seeing any? Vote. Carried. 10.6, Carolyn.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Desert Bloom Water Facility refund. The recommended motion, the council direct administration to refund the Desert Bloom Golf Club for utilities paid in the amount of $3,019.17. The alternative motion is council direct administration to refund the Desert Bloom Golf Club for utilities paid in the amount of $18,301.13. So there's substantial background information for council's information. And since the operation of the water facility began in 2006, the grand total of $18,301 has been inadvertently paid by the golf course. The golf course is requesting the amount of $18,301 to be refunded. Since the new ownership from April of 19 to March of 21, the amount inadvertently paid by the golf course was $3,019.
Hey, Richard?
I'd like to make a motion that this be postponed and that administration would get a legal on this because based on a informal conversation, they feel that they are in the right of asking for the full amount because when they bought the place, they assumed all liabilities, et cetera, et cetera. So if I make the motion to only pay the 3,000, it's going to be back. So it would help council to know what is what legal would consider their opinion.
Yeah, so Mr. Chairman, so a recommended motion would be that administration seeks legal counsel on this item and bring back to a future meeting.
Yeah, because if we're, that's my motion, okay? Because if we're going to not go with the full amount, we're going to have to supply a reason. And it would be nice to have the legal reason in our decision.
Michelle?
Just a question. It's the 3,000 is from just when they bought it. Before that, somebody else owned it. Well, I don't understand how they can claim what was owed before they bought it. Like that's kind of buyer beware, isn't it?
Well, that's what Richard's saying is
Yeah.
it took over all the liabilities and all of, so we do need a legal on that to
Yeah,
see
okay.
where we would stand.
I'm good with that.
Any other questions on that? Not seeing any. Vote. Okay. What's that? Yeah. 10.7, Tarlin?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. The Irvin Agricultural Discovery Center update at the school. Administration met with the superintendent and the maintenance supervisor and discussed the direction that administration received about looking at taking the water perhaps from the school and the power over for the Discovery Center. When they got quotes to look at it, it would be for both would be $80,000. So they looked at, they contacted Fortis and they contacted and a couple other contractors. So the following would be the county's contribution. So the electrical connection would be $11,050. Water connection would be $18,000. The water vault, because it's not a, it's they'll be applying for, before it was not a permanent structure. Now it will be, however, it's not, it's just a coverall. And so the water meter needs to be down in the ground. So we need a vault. Installation of the approach and 200 yards of gravel would be $40,550. Initially, they had requested $120,000.
See, everybody's jumping to throw their hand up at once. Darcy?
So now they want the money instead of us doing it?
So what we would do is we will work with them, but that would be each component. So for the electrical connection, they would work with Fortis. Fortis is contributing a substantial amount. So that the cost that the county would forward to pay for that would be 11. So it depends on how we pay the bill, really. And that would, the devil's in the details, but we would, how they wish to, if we would get invoiced directly or just forward the funds for that. And then the water connection is a contractor, so we can work with them to see how they wish that to be distributed. The water vault, it would be, we would be providing that water vault, but we have to account for that in inventory. The installation of the approach would be us, but we still have to account for that as a project. And then the 200 yards of gravel. And then, so we would, but we still have to account for it. So doing this is a lot different from the 120, that 125, I believe they had asked for.
You make a motion?
I'll make the motion number one, but I just, for future, instead of using yards, can we use the metric system that we're all used to?
No, we're used to yards.
I still do it old school. I'm a yard. I'm sorry. I do the yard thing still. Sorry.
As the youngest guy in the room, I prefer Imperial.
That's me. That's all me. Because I like yards still.
Any other questions on it? Vote. Carried. Yep, we'll blow that in the next couple of months. 10.8, Carolyn.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Urban Agricultural, so the Agricultural Discovery Center offsite levy deferral. So because there's going to be a water connection as per the bylaw, just like there was for the Dunmore Equestrian Center, that a motion of council is required to defer that levy. Exactly the same as the Equine Center in Dunmore.
Richard?
Make that motion, number one, recommendation number one, sir.
Any other questions?
Yes.
Ernest?
Lost my place here now. We waived the off-site set, whatever we waived this money. So now, if they go away and somebody else develops there, do they?
It's registered as a mortgage on there. So it's, so we get, so just like the Equine Center, if they ever sell it, they cease to be a society, then, and they sell it to a private, the county receives their funds. Yep.
Yeah, okay.
Yep.
That's registered at the time of the vault going in, correct?
Yep. And I wasn't here when with the Equine Center, but I guess it worked very well in the process to do that.
Yeah. Any other questions? Vote. Carried. 10.9, Carolyn.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Appointment of fire guardians. So before you is the recommended motion that council appoint Shirley Walker, Nadine Monroe, Anna Mast for the issuance, suspension, and cancellation of fire permits only. Brad Stratty, John McBain, Cam Klatt, Les Dirksen, Jack Ziffley, Dwayne Johnston, Justin Dursath, Ben Entz, Bryce Jantz, Jason Linton, and Perry Yeast as fire guardians. And there's background information there as well, Mr. Chairman.
Michelle?
I'll make motion number one.
Standard every year. Any questions on it? Ernest?
With this fire, like we have this fire ban on the entire county every time we do this, is there such a thing as we could do different areas? Because like we got a fire ban here, my burn pit has still got 3 feet of snow in it. I've had a burn pit for 2 years that I can't burn because I can't get in the regulation time. Because I either snowed under in the fall or snowed under in the spring. Like now, my burn permit pit is just starting to dry out.
So, Mr. Chairman, in my experience, when you have a rural municipality and it's vast, there's always areas that are green and that are dry. And I have personally put on, I used Highway 36 as a divider. West was good, east wasn't. And it created a lot of hostility because if you lived a mile on the other side and you wanted to burn, but you couldn't because you were over there, it wasn't advantageous or healthy for the organization or for the community because it pitted a lot of people against each other. I know that may sound crazy, but it did. And so you can do it. That would be council direction. It just that it's not just clear cut. And because we are so vast, there does run an issue with that.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Yes, I agree with Tara Lynn's comments. One of the things, because of obviously the geographical nature and the size of our municipality, just as Tara Lynn alluded to, it's difficult to try to get an accurate handle on such a large area, and we rely on the information that Alberta Agriculture and Forestry provides us in terms of the humidity, the conditions of the vegetation material, and all those types of things to base some of our information on when we make our decisions. We just don't have the resources or the capacity with our staff to with all the other day-to-day things that we have going on, to be able to be out and because conditions change quickly, right? And so to be able to make those determinations on a region by region or area by area basis would be very very onerous on the staff that we have. And like Tara Lynn says, it creates hard feelings, and sort of the approach of everybody's in the same boat. It may not be as accurate to some in some areas, but it's difficult from a staff point of view.
Well, you could just say anybody that lives over 3,500 feet.
If that's direction that council wishes to investigate, we certainly will and come back with it. But that's currently what we have right now. And we acknowledge that because it's different. It's different from Schuler to Elkwater to Seven Persons to Suffield to Jenner.
We've had this discussion before.
It's tough.
Darcy?
Do we actually give out tickets if somebody does start a fire? Burn permits?
Sometimes the fires start themselves.
Yeah, Mr. Chairman, if I could respond to the question. Okay, thank you. Yeah, so generally, we try to be educational in terms of our enforcement first and foremost. In some cases, it's legitimate that the landowner doesn't realize that there is a restriction on burn permits between April 1st and November 1st. And so that's the first approach. And then if it's a repeat offender, or then that's where we have the ability to provide penalties through fines and enforcement in that regard.
Richard?
I think one of this, Ernest, I would have a hard time going with your decision because there's always going to be pressure on whoever makes that decision. And like Carolyn says, somebody that's a mile away from you, maybe wouldn't get the permit. So I think down the road that farmers and ranchers should be prepared for the fact that a burn pit might turn into a berry pit that you're not going to burn. I'm listening to these farmers telling me there's been 5 years of drought. Okay, so we have another drought this summer. You're not going to issue any permits. So if they want that cleaned up, they're going to have to turn it into a berry pit. Okay, there's two options there. Always has been.
Any other questions or comments? Okay, not seeing it. Where was I here? Fire guardian appointment, right? I don't know, got off topic again. Okay, vote. Carried. You for or against? You're opposed? Okay. Unfinished business. Rule 11.1.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Road Stabilization Program. To recommend motion that Council direct administration to proceed with the 2020 Road Stabilization Program as presented. There is background and a bunch of maps that our Director of Public Works would love to discuss. Love kind of a heavy word on that.
Maybe it'll just get passed and you won't have to talk about it. Dustin.
I'll move recommendation number 1.
Okay. Any questions or comments on it?
I like the idea. I'm excited to see how it works.
Ernest?
Might say this in the map, so, and I may not have read it. So we have these maps with the lines on, are they just the existing roads showing that, or is this roads that we plan to do?
These are roads that are part of the program. So the identified in red would be the areas that will be addressed.
Okay, so I was correct that the orangey yellow is the existing road.
That's correct.
And it's just showing that they're a gravel road.
That's right.
So the red is where we're doing it.
Yeah,
Okay,
yep.
thank you.
Any other questions?
Some of the maps are different areas but overlap each other. So and we actually took our we took the rep out to these roads to look at each road and check the condition to see if it would work with their product, and so that's where. And we got some ideas on some roads that might not, that aren't identified in these maps, that might be other products might be more applicable.
Okay, any other questions?
The one off of, I guess, page 196, is that the road to Patterson's or to the pit?
Yes, it is.
To the pit?
Yeah, that's correct.
So from where the oil ends, I assume.
Yeah, where the oil ends, and then when the oil was at the point of getting rehab, because that's a yearly thing, is that we would do what we did on Range Road 93 and incorporate MG30 right into that oil surface.
Okay. What does it cost us again for like a mile of this stuff?
So it's roughly about $2,000 every 100 meters. So times by 18.
6,000.
Yeah. Well, I speak yards. That's so,
Shane's on his own. He can calculate it over.
I don't. Yeah, that's correct, Steve.
It'll be 36. 32,000 a mile.
And this was all funded through in our current department allocations.
In our budget.
In our budget, yep.
Any other questions on it? Richard?
I'm on page 196, and I see where you're going to do on Range Road 71. You'll do a short section in between 122 and the 528. Any chance we can get it all the way to the 528? Because everybody else has oiled roads, and that one, doesn't.
Yeah,
and there's a lot of traffic there.
We looked at that, and we actually put up traffic counts, and if you go by traffic counts, that wouldn't even have been able to put on the map.
Okay.
But it was more that it was complaint based. That's why it and the deterioration of the assets. So the intention is to go 200 meters on the north of the existing oil.
Okay.
And then going just about to the intersection, and depends upon how much wear and tear from the turning. We might just do that intersection, but that was the intent, because any traffic goes north isn't the heavy haul traffic that we're experiencing going on the south side.
Okay, that greenhouse doesn't produce really any kind of traffic compared to the other one. So okay, will have to be for now.
And as a trial, one of the things that we were looking at is using this product on the hill slopes, because it does create a hard solid surface. And when you put it on a hill, then you've extended weighted that surface going downhill. And so especially with that hill, that has some steep inclines and decline on the upside.
Okay, any other questions? That's who made the motion? Dustin, okay. Vote. Carried. 11.2, Tara. Oh, no, this is 5 minutes, you guys.
You choose to beat me up on an empty stomach? Is that where you're going with this?
Oh, you're so high maintenance. All right, well, let's everybody jump at this. Robin.
All right, do I need to make a motion first? Probably, okay, I'm gonna make a motion to receive for information to start the conversation. Okay, so the idea of spending $2.5–3 million bucks on a library in Irvine is something that I'm having a hard time swallowing. However, I wanted to throw out an idea for conversation amongst council that might make something like this a little bit more palatable and more readily utilized by our ratepayers. So I've got 6 kids, 7 kids that go to Irvine School. One of the things about Irvine schools, it's a long way from home, so the kids take the bus there. At the end of the day, they take the bus home. Even the idea of having after school activities is hard because you have to drive all the way out to Irvine to pick them up, and it prevents things like that from happening. What if, as a part of looking at the Irvine Library and trying to utilize some of the services or some of the opportunities that we have amongst our communities, what if we looked at something that resembled kind of a more of a rural public transit, say a bus that once a day in the evenings or something like that, like a late bus that would end up coming from Irvine to Dunmore or to Redcliffe to Seven Persons, that would make this type of facility a little bit more readily accessible by people in different communities that weren't necessarily going to drive out there. So I'm thinking after school programs, if kids are doing stuff at the school and then after school they want to go and do some tutoring at the library, they had the ability to go over there, end up catching the late bus. You can pick them up at the high school at 7 o'clock or something like that. If it's just being built in Irvine and we don't find a way to connect our community in a way where we can actually access it better, I think that it's a lot of money to be spending without a way to actually plan to take the most advantage of that as possible. If there was an appetite to discover or explore that a little bit more, I think something like this may not be a terrible idea if we had the ability to be able to access it. But I think that we need to look at it from a county-wide, how do we get people in there to utilize it, and then to actually have it built into kind of a community building plan or strategy. It's not really a point, it's just more of a question that I wanted to raise to get some feedback from you guys.
Michelle?
Yeah, I really truly believe that Irvine needs a new library. Whether it needs to be $3 million, I'm not exactly sold on that. But this idea, I really like that because you're involving all of the communities and taking them out to Irvine to use the new facility, which if we're going to build it, I think it should be utilized by everybody, not just the people of Irvine. So I like that busing idea.
Ernest?
Well, I agree with the urban library. I think it's been there for a long time. It serves a purpose. Libraries always serve a purpose in the community. $3 million, not a chance in, well, you know where, that we're spending that kind of money. We don't have to spend that kind of money. I mean, it's in a one-truck fire hall now, so we could quadruple the size quite easily. As far as busing, well, maybe. The only thing is for library services, you wouldn't want to use Redcliffe because they already got a library. That's, so I don't see that being a synergy. Other than that, if somebody has a plan, I'm good for, we'll build a smaller, a different package that's affordable. And Robin's idea, well, we can work on it.
Dustin and then Shane.
I like the idea of building a library in Irvine or repurposing another building to do it. I think that avenue should be explored. I think the big question we should ask is what is council comfortable spending on a library? And then from that
point, we can take and do the research into what we can do for that kind of money. So I think it's a viable thing to have there, but I just don't think it's viable to build the Taj Mahal like what we had presented to us.
Shane?
Oh, I wasn't here, regrettably. I missed that meeting when the building was presented to us, because I was when I looked at this, very, very, very disappointed. $3 million library in Irvine, no. For $1 million, if we set aside, say $1 million, you could build a 3,500 square foot house on a cement slab, 2 bathrooms, walls, windows facing the south, for $1 million. And then, like, Robin's got a good idea about, the busing, so it's used more. Irvine needs a library. They'll get used, but not a $3 million one. This guy that presented this stuff, I am so disappointed. So disappointed. Because for $1 million, I feel for $1 million, I mean, we could go to a local housing builder, say, this is what we want. Simple. Or like Dustin said, I mean, if we say $1 million, maybe we look at refurbishing the building, but there's different options. Not a $3 million there that's out of place. And that, because when you look at the plan, so much wasted space. And we can build a functional library. I know it get used. The busing is a good deal where we could have after school projects for the kids. They could be there, and then 4:30 or so, 5 o'clock, the bus leaves, and you pick up your kids in Dunmore or up at Shula, different. Or Redcliffe wouldn't, that's too far out, and then up in my area, we have the Rollston one. But I mean, this one in Irvine, that makes sense. And then I really feel Irvine needs a library, but not a $3 million one.
Michelle?
I was just going to say, I don't know that if you were getting a bus to go to Schuler would be worth it at all. Schuler's got a library in their school, so I don't think you'd need to go out to our area. But for the ones around here, I just think that's a genius idea.
Richard? No disrespect to you, Robin, but I don't think you bounced that off your wife, that idea of riding on a bus with kids and the people that go there, the people that go to a library, that child could be 1 year old, where they go to get books to read, or they participate in a play group. And so Walsh people use the library and surrounding area. And the idea of asking somebody from Walsh to come to Irvine and get on a bus and ride with all those kids to wherever and come back, I think you're going to get beat up. Like, the mothers would definitely want to have a little conversation with you on that one, but that's just my thoughts. So I'd like to throw the bus idea goodbye. The other thing is that I'm glad that I'm hearing some positive stuff on the fact that Irvine does need a new library. Every meeting that we bring up, I still, I try and show you some of the examples of how bad it is there, that there is no air quality there, that there's probably mold. We have fire department people here. There's no access. If a parent goes up to that library right now and they have their child in a stroller, they got to leave the stroller outside. So if there's a medical emergency inside, and you can imagine you can't get a stroller in there, how are you going to get that person out? I guess it's a good thing you guys pack saws with you, because we can cut a hole in the wall and make it work, right? So that's what I've been trying to do. And 2.5 years ago, we stopped at the Irvine Library on our road tour. And that's where I wanted everybody to look to see how bad that place was. And at that time, I suggested that we start putting money away to replace the library. Well, we never did, okay? So now we're faced with some serious coin. And the part about this 3 million, no, that was never the idea. The architect threw out some stuff that if this is a commercial building versus a house building, here's the difference in it, right? And so I'm not asking for the 3 million, but I do want some sufficient funds that we can make something happen. And the reason that's back on the agenda today is the fact that on there it says we could use it for maybe a library, or we could consider going after some grant money for a fire station. I'm here to say that the library should come first, okay? Because this is the one that we've been neglecting for many years. We throw $100,000 a year into Irvin for the recreation center, and then we think, wow, we're good, right? But we've ignored the library, and it's the library's turn, okay? And a fire station combination that we're looking at is probably going to be $800,000, okay? It would be nice if it's cheaper, but that's not the real world. So I want a building. I want a shed for the kids. How's that sound? Instead of a shed for the equipment. That's the order that I think it should be in, right? So I agree. I would just like to know that council is on board to go chase some money and also to commit some money to this project, okay? And then we can sit down. Let's do a committee of, say, 3 of us, and we'll go talk to we'll talk to an architect, not an architect.
No more architects.
We'll talk to an engineer, probably, that designs complexes like that, because that's the person that they would have to put together the mechanical, the electrical, all that stuff, right? But give me a number that at least I know we can go forward. And also, I guess I put $2 million in there because probably need $1 million for the building. We need 50 grand to do the internet. We have a long ways to go with that, and the building will be useless without that. We have to come up with some kind of deal for the person that owns the land, and we have a demolition and stuff. So fine, if 2 million sounds too much, let's go for $1.5 million. But if we're going to apply for grants, let's apply for a $2 million grant and see what we can get. Yes, there's some federal, the stuff that was out in the paper the other day, there's federal funding out there for new buildings like that. Let's leave that number up for now, but at least make the commitment that we are willing to put in $1.5 million so that we can get this project going, okay? Nothing's gonna happen till next spring at the earliest, but we could sit down and get things going. The other option is, and I don't think we have to go that way now, is the library would be done, okay? If we don't step forward, that library is done, because I think we've pushed the envelope as far as we can for quality, like health issues down there. I think that we would, if we ever had a test done, we're done, we're shut down, okay? And it's our building, right? So we're responsible. And we're asking somebody to work in that environment. That's not gonna fly. We don't want to shut down something that's as valuable as this for the people out there and the surrounding area. So I'd like to arm wrestle with Dustin or Shane on the amount, but like I said, if we're going after some grant money, could we please go for the higher amount? And then that could leave us enough to do shelving and just make it a proper building. We're still going to go do some fundraising, but please, somebody come up with a number that you think you can live with. And the other part I think I want to say is the fact that when I first brought this up and I suggested it's going to be $1 million, and a few people just fell off their chairs. But you guys know how much we pay for a grader? We pay $475,000 for a grader. So that's 2 graders, okay? And I'm asking for 4. But 2 graders, like those days are gone where we can do things for $100,000, right? We pay 90 or 90,000 for a 3-ton or 4-ton or whatever. But we have to get with the new reality of what it costs to do things, right? Like I said, that fire hall grader shed, we're gonna talk 800,000, maybe even closer to 1 million, right? It's the numbers. There's no way around it.
There's a lineup before you. Okay, are you done?
Sure.
All right. Robin.
All right. To clarify, I was not making the suggestion that we bus people to the library. I was saying that we bus people to Irvine. It gives us the ability for families to take advantage of after-school programs like sports, and they could utilize, you know, the library while they're out there as well. And yes, I actually did kind of run this by my wife, because all week this week we wait at home till 4 o'clock till the bus comes home, and at 4:05 everybody gets into the big van and drives to Irvine to pick up 1 or 2 kids that are in the track and field programs afterwards. So yes, it would be definitely helpful to our family if there was a bus that came home at 6 o'clock, and if there was 2 hours after sports practice that they could go to the library and have a tutor and do some, you know, take advantage of that. That is what the idea was there for. When it comes down to the comparison of the library versus graders, I think that you bring up a good point, and that is, what is the utilization of a grader? How many people are impacted by a grader, and over how long of a period of time? And maybe this is a question that I haven't heard an answer for yet, but what is the utilization of the library currently? Because if we have 15 people that are actively utilizing it, that's a pretty steep cost for service. But if there's a plan to have 15 and then have 200 people utilizing it continuously, again, then that's part of the, I think the pitch that I need to hear before I'm on board with anything. Because if it's just a building that's going to be having 5 or 10 people every couple of days, you know, and I'd be curious to know the demographics. I don't know very many young people right now that go and utilize a library. They utilize Google, they utilize the internet like crazy. So if we need to get them involved and utilizing that through programs like the tutoring, great. But this isn't a slam dunk for me.
Dustin?
So I guess this kind of goes back to my multi-use facility thing. When I originally brought forward the fire hall grader shed idea, is there any reason that we can't take and keep going with that and build onto that as a library as well, as a public service district? I know we had in the preliminary discussions we had, what else can we put into these things? Well, you know, I thought about using the old fire hall as a library, but is there any reason that you can't take and build that building right off the side of it and continue on with it? You know, essentially our facilities are used when needed, but if you have something built on that gets used by those 15, 20, 30, 100 people a day, whatever it is, you're only, you're saving money by building things together like that. So just bringing that up for discussion anyways.
Darcy? Darcy is before you. Wait your turn.
Okay, there's okay, when this started, if we're applying for grants or whatever, you need a building, well then shoot for the Taj Mahal. I thought that's where we were going with this. So there's your grant applicable thing. But I mean, there's options like Dustin brought up. There's other buildings. There's, for now, to set a dollar figure on something is almost impossible, because we could be doing anything from renovating to building a new building, right? It all depends on, but I thought this was, if we're applying for grants, well then shoot for the moon, right? But that was where I thought we were going with it.
Health.
Yeah, I definitely agree that, you know, Irvine does need a library in that. But I just want to comment on what Dustin just said about fire hall and whatnot. We, like where I come from and whatnot, we had that and we ended up with a big problem, because like you'd have the library going and then you have a fire call. You, like, you know, the vehicles that would be parked in front of that fire hall, the firefighters couldn't get to it. So like I say, there was a big problem with that. So it's something to consider, you know, if this was to happen. So.
Shane?
Yeah, to Robin's comments. The Irvine Library right now is so outdated. So it's hard to see how many kids would use it. But talking with the wife, she works with kids and they use the libraries in the schools. They use them. And I feel they'll use it, but you got to get a little more modern. And the urban one right now is so outdated. So it's hard to say, how many kids are going to use it and all that. You don't know. But like the movie, you build, they will come. But yeah, to have a bigger stuff. But I mean, we all seem to agree urban needs a library, so we should let staff forge on with, figure them out and try to get some grants and see where we can go.
You got a time limit.
I know. I think it's okay to pass it on to staff, but staff needs direction from us as to the dollar amount. And that's why I'm going to keep pushing for the $2 million. I mean, 3, we're never going to build that. That's for sure not, but we could definitely spend close to 2 till we have everything in place. The other thing is like, Dustin, I understand, I appreciate that idea, but I think you'd get beat up really bad the first time that those fire trucks went out and there was little kids, people walking into the library with their little kids. And I think you need that separation big time. So, but like Darcy said, we're going to go after some grant money, but Irvin needs to know that we are going to proceed with the library. That's the fundamental thing that we need to decide today, that yes, we're on board. So they know that they don't have to continue to operate in those conditions. And through the chair to Chair Lynn, does staff not need to know that we would like them to apply for $2 million in funding for this building?
Yes, sorry. I haven't talked for a bit, so I got a frog in my throat. I'm all choked up. So yes, we certainly need direction on next steps. And also too, so when I would recommend we need some assistance in applying for grants of this, because it's a competitive grant process. And we need a plan and to be able, so my understanding with the green building fund, that if it's less than 3 million, then they're approving on an ongoing basis. And but you need to have it needs to be a grant app that is of substance. And yes, we need direction, and for sure a motion of council to apply for it. That's a necessity, because it's a so a new under the criteria for that grant, a new build is funded 50-50. So there would need to be a motion of council to commit to that.
Dustin?
I guess the question on the Green Initiative grant, because we were talking about that at lunchtime, is there a limitation on what we can do for that? So where I'm coming from that, are we better off making one application into it for multiple buildings, or are we better off making singular applications for each building we plan?
I couldn't definitively say yes or no, but because they're different types of buildings, like I would apply separately, and two, and you have different timelines as well and different expectations. So on the 18th council meeting, the Director of Municipal Services and the Director of Public Works will have a plan for the multi-use, the fire and the PW concept. So they'll have that to present to you guys. So,
Robin?
I'm hung up on the dollar figure here, and I guess maybe I'm also hung up on the prioritization of things. Not saying that every decision that we make has to be a decision that is based on input versus output, but we talk about cost recovery. We've had numerous conversations in this room with regards to like the Denmark Equestrian Center, for as an example, right? Which in some ways could be utilized to help bring in commercial development and things like that. But whenever we have conversations about that, we always kind of get hung up on the dollars. And with this right now, if we're talking like $2 million for the service in urban, it's not jiving with me right now. I think I could probably get behind like $500,000 as a contribution from the county, but I think that's a long ways off from where you're wanting to go with it too. Yeah, right. And so that's my hang up right now is, the amount of money that is being put out. Yeah.
Ernest.
Well, I tend to agree. I would have a hard time voting for something that was millions of dollars. I'm not totally convinced. I had suggested we should maybe put it by the school, and then I got a lecture and a handle on how libraries work, and I really know how that all works. I think if we could put it somewhere closer to the school that would be conjoined with a school program, not a school library, but that would be more readily acceptable than having to schlep 5 blocks across town or whatever it is. I think that would have more potential other than, and I think we need to be smaller. That's kind of where I am. I don't think it has anything to do with the fire hall or the greater shed. They're kind of two different facilities, but I would like to see it. We look to going somewhere more to the school. I know supposedly the kids won't come from one area or the other, but I kind of think if you build it, they will come.
Trying to look around and avoid Richard altogether. So what about, I don't know. What about if we put a $2 million one budget in, but only 500,000 is from the county and 500,000 raised by the community, and then you can go for the other $1 million for a grant. Then they don't get a library. But you're going for the $1 million grant or $1 million funding.
If you build a grader / fire hall in Irvin for anywhere close to $1 million, and you're telling me that council's only prepared to put in 500,000 for a library, well, Darcy better start packing his bags right now because he won't have a chance down there. If that's that council's inferring that it's more important to have a fire shed / grader than it is to have a library.
I'm not talking about a grader shed or a fire shed. I'm talking about the library right now.
But that's what's going to come next. Okay.
It's not my conversation right now.
We can't build anything for $500,000. And if we would have been putting money away for the last 5 years, we would have that $1 million in there. And it wouldn't be such a big item. To say that Irvin isn't worth $1 million is wrong. Those people, we've neglected this library so bad. It's time that we stepped up to the plate. We fell behind. We did nothing for them. And now is the time we have to do something.
Dustin and then Shane.
I would be comfortable with $1 million. And so we could apply for matching grants of $1 million. And then you have a $2 million budget to do it. I can get on board with that because I can see it being something that might spark something of interest in that community because it needs it. So that's where I stand.
Shane?
Yeah, I go with that too. $1 million and, apply for the grants. We keep saying, well, we could have put money away. Last I looked, we did put some money into reserves. So, we are putting some money away. Irvin needs it. And to deny it, and I'd like the vote to be recorded.
First, we gotta have a motion. For information.
So off of Dustin's comment, I could get behind the million if it was something that was consistent within council's decision-making on service delivery. Like the same kind of idea or approach to the equestrian center to me makes sense, but we've never gone that direction either. And so why is the library in Irvin, where we've been working for the last 2-3 years to get, or 4 or however long, because you've maybe been working on it longer than I've been here, but why is that more important than what we've got a community group here that's pushing for, that's we've done consultations on, so on and so forth. If we're looking at key investment to provide delivery of services that help to enhance our community, and we talk about doing $1 million here or $1 million there and identifying where the priorities need to be, I can get behind that. What I can't get behind is inconsistent decision making based on it being their turn. If the library is a good place to put this, in Irvin, and we're all here saying $1 million and then go for a grant matching, great. But let's show the same kind of support with things like the equestrian center that's been pushing hard. We've done a bunch of development and planning around in order to move things forward and develop our community more.
Dustin?
I think my only opinion on that, Robin, would be is that I have a easier time putting money into something that the county owns than something that's ran by a private organization. That's kind of the way I look at it. Essentially, at the end of the day, it's our infrastructure, and that adds to the infrastructure that the municipality owns, and not something that's owned privately that we don't have a stake in. And that's why I look at it that way. That's how my opinion on stuff like that goes. Yes.
Richard?
The idea of the library is we're going to upgrade an existing facility that is used by quite a few people. And it's almost like the equestrian center that, we're hoping more will use it once the facility is there. Right now in Irvin, we can put 5 people in there. Okay, so it's pretty hard to have any kind of group things going on, any play schools. Darcy and I've had a conversation where we are hoping that, and we really feel comfortable with the idea that it's going to be a bit of a youth center too. And there's definitely kids in the evening that want to get out of the house and they want their corner to do some study, and maybe they don't have the rooms that they have in their house that they can, go over to the library and do things. It's open on the weekends and stuff like that. So anyway, we have made a verbal commitment to the equestrian center that we will run a water and a water line down there and a road, which we figure is worth about $1 million. Okay, so we haven't forgotten the equestrian center. We just haven't proceeded with it, right? But I am more than in favor. If I could ask a favor that you would withdraw your motion to receive for information, and if Dustin or Shane would make the motion that the county will contribute $1 million and that we try for a grant for $2 million.
You withdrawing yours?
Yeah, I can even amend it to reflect what Shane was requesting, and just reiterating the request for the recorded vote would be good. You know what? I'll withdraw, and Shane, you can word it however you wish.
Okay, that the county pledges are $1 million towards the new library so we can go after $2 million worth of funding, so we can get matching funding and see where that'll take us. Something like that.
So what happens if we don't get the funding?
It comes back then.
Okay.
You have to make that much of a detail in there though. Like if we still commit the $1 million, then at least, well, Darcy's on the library board, but some of us can then work on a library that for the $1 million plus any other donations that we can find. Like, can we have a firm commitment that we will put the $1 million in maybe make it into two motions? Is that, would that be better? A motion to commit $1 million to the Irvin Library, and then we would also motion to try to obtain grant money matching funds. No?
Contingent on grant funding.
That means I lose it, or we lose it if we don't get any grant funding.
Right.
I don't want to lose that. I want the commitment from council so that we can keep going forward and I can spend time talking to contractors and whatever else about what else is out there for $1 million.
Go ahead, Robin.
I think that the motion of saying $1 million and then looking for another million through grants, though, is what defines what kind of structure we're actually applying for the grants on. And to just say that we're doing $1 million and not having it tied to design is basically giving $1 million check, hoping that you get that. And if not, you just go and build $1 million facility, which you've already said isn't enough. Right. And so if we're all on the same page that 3 million for a building is excessive, we're saying staff go and let's come back with a $2 million project. Council's committed to $1 million on that, and then get the rest through grant funding. I don't, have fun fundraising $1 million right now privately. It's going to rely on grants. You're going to need the grant money to get the other half, and let's move this down the road, get the ball rolling for you guys. And then I'm hoping that down the road, we remember this too with other groups, that first $1 million commitment on things helps to get things happening. And then the rest of it from there is going to rely on whether or not it can be justified in a grant application that it's necessary.
Darcy?
Yeah, just to clarify Robin's point a little there, is you can't apply for a grant without a picture, right? That's why I was saying you take the Taj Mahal there, and if that's what we're going to use, otherwise you got to come up with another building, right? Second one was more than 2 million too, wasn't it?
Yeah, 2.7.
Yeah, so.
And when we spoke to this gentleman, we told him to be around between $1 million and $2 million. For what he brought here, he should revise this and get it back to what we asked for and didn't receive.
If you take the $250,000 of engineering fees,
Yeah.
then you're at the $2 million. Look at the engineering.
All I was looking for was a firm commitment on $1 million so that I don't have to come back here and get beat up again. That's all I'm asking. And even if we don't get that grant from the federal government, I still can't move forward. I can't go after any other funding without knowing that I can tell other people, whether whoever it's going to be, say the provincial government, that Cypress County has made a financial commitment of $1 million. Okay, because that's the first question they're going to do. How much is Cypress County putting in? Well, they might put in $1 million if we can get enough funding. No, I need a firm number to do my job.
That's what the motion is a firm number.
But if we don't get any grant money, you're going to take that money away.
You're basically being given 50% of a $2 million build as a motion of council. And that's way better than if you came in with $1 million on a $9 million build to go for a grant, because you've got a 50% contribution from the municipality. If you can't find grant funding and now you have to do a $1 million build to come back to council and say, we're going to reduce the size of this, you're going to have a lot easier chance to have money that's there, but there's probably always going to be a contribution from grants in some form or another. To me, this is like the safest bet for you is you've got a motion of council committing $1 million, it's 50%. You look for precedent, that's who else have we haven't given that to really anything in the last 4 years. This would be the first time I can think of us actually committing $1 million in a single motion in 4 years.
So
I think it's a good start.
So why does that matter that this is the first time?
This is a good thing for you, is what I'm saying.
It's an existing facility that we're trying to replace, that we're trying to upgrade, because the one that's there now is gonna be shut down.
We know, you don't have to tell us that again.
I
but
just
this
thought
is
you
the
guys were
motion
so
that-
tired of me that you never wanted me to come back again and ask for more money, but obviously you're okay.
You get to get beat up just like the rest of us do every time we bring something back. So that's just how the game is.
Yeah, eventually your mic won't work. So we have a motion on the floor from Shane for $1 million from Cypress County and going after the other $1 million in grant funding. Yeah, basically. Any other questions or comments? Nope, don't see any.
The council direct administration to apply for the grant for the construction of the urban library with a maximum contribution of $1 million from Cypress County Council.
That's what you asked for. All right,
Processing that. Can you just reread that one more time?
The council direct administration to apply for the grant for the construction of the urban library with a contribution, with a maximum contribution of $1 million from Cypress County.
So the only thing that we're missing on that is direction to staff that it be a $2 million build.
I can put that in there.
If you could do that, that'd be.
Absolutely.
Like that, I think that captures what we were talking about anyways.
And apply for that, yeah, and to apply for that. Correct.
I'm not asking for any much. Shane asked for a recorded vote. Vote. Oh, that's carried.
So
Against? Ernest? Oh, I was for. Okay. Yeah, you're right. That was an hour-long one, wasn't it? I thought it would be quick. Okay, so I need a motion for accept the minutes from the ICF. Dustin. Vote. Carried. Do I have to do the motion to adjourn yet, or is it just I can adjourn it?
Sure. Unless
Okay.
there's any other business that needs to be discussed.
Nope, that's all that's on this piece of paper.